Welcome to Blue K Jazz Dance. One of the key things is I, as an individual, came back and started teaching teachers in Manchester and Greater Manchester and other parts of the world. I, as an individual, went out to research black dance at advanced level with certain teachers in Manchester, a gentleman called Thomas Alaji. So a lot of the drummers, Afro-Cubist drummers, were actually dancers in jazz period. Tommy was born in 1888. He died in my hands in 1991. He had been involved in every dance that there was, every social dance there had been from the period he was a child to now in Africa and in the UK. He came to the UK in 1939. He travelled to different parts of the world as a merchant seaman, as an individual in the war. He told me about what dance meant to pilots, what dance meant to soldiers. It was an activity that they used for escapism. They used that activity that they used for bonding. It's an activity they used to make them feel good, and they used that activity to keep themselves fit as individuals, to raise the consciousness. Tommy told me about in depth. He gave me 103 years of knowledge. Cannot get it from anywhere. As a person who was at the front line, he saw the dances develop. He was, by the time he was in his early learning years, he's seen the 1900s come in Nigeria. Do you understand? He's seen the development, 1910, 1920, 1930. He's seen everything that could happen for dance in this world as an individual. Now, dance was a political tool, and one of the key things I'm sharing advanced knowledge. When you're an advanced dance leader, what happens is you recognize dance is a PhD. You get told dance is a PhD subject, and there's a way to study dance to understand it. The only way you can study any dance people need to understand, carte blanche, is simply you have to study the politics, the economic, technological environment. You have to study the environmental time around it. You have to study the social development, the physical, the intellectual, cultural, emotional development. You have to study wars, what was happening at the time when the dance was created. You have to study north, south, east and west, the regions. So, prime example, advanced knowledge, and it's important for people to understand. We know there's been rivalry. Why was there rivalry between Manchester and the north of England? Yeah, Manchester didn't have a rivalry, but London had a rivalry. It was to do with politics. And people diminished Manchester's and the north of England's contribution to the world of dance. Manchester was the first to create a dance societies that spread dance around the world due to a gentleman called Mr. Finney. Yeah, that's because remember, Britain, Manchester, through the Industrial Revolution, 80% of the world's cotton was reaching the rest of the world. In 1894, Manchester created Manchester Ship Canal, which was basically connected to the rest of the world. So music, dances, they were connected. So they had sailors travelling out, coming to Manchester with new dances and everything. That's how Manchester became an epic centre for music and dance around the world. Within 1 square foot in the world, the number one pop groups in the world, they stem from the north of England. Manchester is the number one place that happens. And so it's important for people to understand. When you look at jazz, people don't really have an understanding. How many dances come from the north of England? The jig, the reel, hornpipe, clog. Where did these dances come from? They come from the north of England, not the south. So you can't have jazz without the north of England. History of the Moors being here, 79 AD. Manchester's actual development into a market town to being an industrial revolution was part of it involving itself in business and commerce. And when business and commerce comes, leisure comes, entertainment comes, sports come into the society. That's how Manchester developed its industrial revolution. So the point I'm making was, I'm at the point where, in sharing with individual, as a dancer, I went to study with different organizations. I worked on the seminal exponents. I worked on professors. I went to symposiums, and that was African lecturers, Brazilian lecturers, Caribbean lecturers, Western lecturers. I went to lecture demonstrations by Dance Fair of Harlem, lecture demonstrations by Western dance groups. I've been into Europe. I seek to find where lectures were by teachers from all different parts of the world, particularly to do with jazz. I studied jazz myself as an individual. Unfortunately, one of the greatest opportunities I had was when I went to Oxford Brookes University to be very much in self-study. YouTube was only about a year old when I went to university in 2005. I lived on it 24/7, and I lived on people's Facebooks 24/7 to get a global understanding of the art form I do called UK Jazz Dance. And I saw something that was important. I realized that what happened, there's been a miseducation on UK Jazz Dance globally, because what happened was when it went abroad, individuals have been teaching it from a class setting. It never happened from a class. When you do that, they talk about the difference between studio hip-hop and original hip-hop. So they talk about what is freestyling in the United States. Freestyling is dances done outside the dance studio. UK jazz dance happened outside the dance studio. A new culture came in, and that culture was not perpetuating a positive image of UK jazz dance. It wasn't dealing with issues to do with the politics, the economics, the racism. The art form was a resistance activity. The art form was a rites of passage. It was healing. It was maintaining. It was a way to bond us as a people who'd been marginalized group. Earl Hines said something which will give some people an insight. He said, jazz is a voice of a free people seeking a better quality of life. UK jazz dance was a voice of a free people seeking a better quality of life. We were oppressed. We were the children born in 48, 50 and 60, born in the slums of Marseille, where we faced deprivation, where we faced lack of healthcare, lack of educational knowledge, where we were subjected to negative images that West Indians were inferior. When we knew that we were inferior, it was when we went to the Caribbean islands and saw black communities. We saw black politicians, black teachers, black architects, black business owners. When we saw that, that is when many of us changed. And I saw that very early on at the age of 8 years old. I saw black books. I saw books called Great West Indians. Why was that important to me? Because I was bombarded by black and white minstrel show books in black and white minstrel show on the television. I was bombarded by colonial images that said blacks were inferior. I was a dark-skinned child, told that dark-skinned people can't achieve. But when I went to the Caribbean, I saw dark-skinned people achieving, and I needed to see that as a child. That changed me. It showed me who I could be, what I could be. And that's what UK jazz dance taught me. Because UK jazz dance, I was told my dance is a dance that shapes negative characteristics and traits. But for me, it shaped positive traits. And all the dancers I saw in my dance group, they shaped positive character traits. Everybody in my dance group were progressive, forward thinking, all at college, came from beautiful families. So everything that was being stated by Western society DJs and society about my art form was untrue. What happened, and it led to people giving up the dance, and what happened, they went on to promote ballet, ballroom dancing, contemporary dance, where I as an individual dipped into different dance styles, but always kept at the forefront. I must raise the prestige of my cultural dancing. Jamaica, and from a Jamaican father was important, and Grenadian mother. That is why I'm still dancing 45 years later. And what happened was, what gave me the confidence was, one, doing research. What gave me the confidence, how people responded to my dance. In the Caribbean, I was a top dancer as well as a top sportsman. People responded to my dances, thought, wow, you really got gifts. Dance Spirit of Harlem I met in 1978, which changed me in 1976, will change any child. I was told there was no black ballet dancers by my teacher at school. Then I met black ballet dancers in 1970, a company, historical, black female, black male dancers, pas de deux in each other. I'm looking at them thinking, is this real? I was told there's no black ballet dancers. And they're in front of me. And why did this start? Because Martin Luther King got killed. So dance companies started from a political perspective. I learned from them, and I learned other things from them, from getting an opportunity to dance for them and speak to them, because I got to meet the dancers backstage. One of the few dancers got to meet and dance for them, and that just happened through an organic perspective. It never wasn't deliberately set up. But one of the things of the prizes for me being in the disco dance champion in the school, who taught people to dance, everybody, I was the best Irish dancer. I was the best dancer in the whole of school. And what happened, how I learned, was each one teach one. A lot of people wanted to learn my dances. I taught them. I became an exceptional teacher, unaware of it, exceptional coach. Because I lived around the corner from the school. I had people coming to the school at our early to learn dancing and to learn sports from me. I trained a lot of people to be better and bolder in what they did. And that history was something I took forward for other people, because what happened was I was written off as a person who couldn't lead myself, never mind others. I didn't only end up doing that, I led myself, led others, and developed others' organizations. And that, so when people told me about this dance, is an activity that develops negative characteristics. I was the one that said no, and I got up and showed it, and this is what I'm doing for my project here. The Perfect Birth for the Cool project is designated 110% to me sharing, this is me, this is how great I am, this is what I'm done, this is my acts of achievements, and this is why that says there. And then what I did, instead of talking about it, I started to create learning materials, talking about, do you know what happened? Most people have acts of achievement. They don't want to embrace them. You know why? In the UK, because they've shown to have self-deprecation. They've been criticized so much from early learning years. They don't believe they can lead. They don't believe they can manage. They don't mean they can manage other people. But they have done, because all of us have something, a talent, and we're all involved at some point in each one. Teach one, which is a proverb from our African origin, that young people can teach adults and adults can teach young people. Blue Can Jazz Dance out. Take it easy.